Alright, what's going on? So I'm going to explain why I'm doing this video outside in a second, but I think as I talk, it'll become more and more obvious why I'm outside, especially at night. So in the last few videos, we discussed pretty much how outside of dating apps and social media, what's a reason that dating sucks in 2022? And basically the synopsis of that was car-dependent infrastructure. Everything's built for cars and not for people when it comes to our cities. And, there's very few cities that are actually built for people. Some places in New York, some core centers of Los Angeles, some core areas of San Diego. Areas like those are built for people, but the overwhelming majority of our cities are not, which necessitates the use of social media and dating apps. What does social media do? It's used as a social proof, social verification. People are able to see your social status off of it as well. I mean, if you meet a potential partner, someone that you want to date or take out, or you meet someone, or just hook up with, or if you meet someone that potential friends, they might ask for your Instagram or your Snapchat, right? They want to see your Snapchat score. They want to see your Instagram followers. How many followers do you have? What kind of pictures are you taking? All your pictures of you like hiking, snowboarding, surfing, skateboarding, doing all these cool things, but are they just you? Or do you have people around you as well? Are you do you have friends? Do you have family? So yeah, I mean, that's social media in a nutshell. And the way this car-dependent infrastructure that we built so far actually plays into that is that it's hard to meet people on a day-to-day basis, new people, or just see people continuously on a day-to-day basis on a friendly or a level where you can potentially build tension with them without having to meddle things like with work or anything of that nature. And this isn't to say that people can't meet at work, it's not to say anything of that, but basically it's hard to do so. So you really have to go out of your way to meet people. You have to go to bars, clubs, approach that random attractive person before you miss your shot. That used to be a common pickup line, super weird, kind of cringy a bit, but sometimes it might work. And what would happen in a typical walkable city is that you could actually meet potential partners, meet potential friends, and build up some kind of chemistry over time through small talk or just by noticing something that you can comment on them about, and just let something flourish from there, or just make a joke out of it, or just something that when you see each other, you acknowledge that one thing. But in today's society of car dependency, you really can't do that. You really have to go out of your way to meet people. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but in one of the videos I talked about how moving cities doesn't help, because moving cities places you right back into the same kind of infrastructure unless you're going to live in a very downtown urban core, in which case it'd be better. But for the most part, these downtown urban cores are super expensive, and they're super expensive because they're made for people. They're made to be livable, while you have other areas outside the city that are cheaper, and they're cheaper because they're not made for people. They're made to just be lived in, but not livable, if that makes sense. And so that's why you have these suburban sprawls at the moment. I mean, if you're in the heart of San Francisco, you could probably get by without a car. You can walk around. You got to step over a bunch of homeless feces, but you can walk around and see a lot of people in your general day-to-day life. Same thing with New York, but they're super expensive because people want to be there because it's livable. Now, you have other cities, or just even the same city, you go outside of the downtown limits and you find more livable areas, but, well, not livable. I mean, you find places to live that are cheaper, but it's not livable. So I've been walking now for about 20 to 30 minutes, and this is the point of why I'm outside right now. I've been walking for about 20 or 30 minutes, and I've literally passed nothing but houses, and I've seen no people outside except one or two people actually working, and everyone else that I've seen has been in cars. And so obviously they're not paying attention to each other. I'm not paying attention to them, really. They're not paying attention to me. And is there a chance to make a connection with these people? No, because they're in a car. So I've seen vastly far more cars than people. Now, let's take, for example, if I was in the heart of Los Angeles, the heart of New York, Vancouver, Seattle, pretty much just take a very urban core of your city and you go there at night, and what you'll be able to find is potentially people, bars, clubs, all these different things, all these social venues, which you got to ask yourself, why can't you just simply have that everywhere you go? Why do you have to go and live somewhere that's like 3 or 4 times above the national average of rents or just cost of living in general? And yeah, the simple thing is we just built cities for cars, man. We didn't build cities for people. So with that in mind, why am I talking about dating apps? Well, on this video, I'm going to be talking about dating apps and the car dependence that we built up. So when it comes to dating apps and car dependency and how they intermingle, I have to first make an analogy. And this analogy is just simply based off of evolution. So let's personify evolution for the sake of this analogy. So evolution's a person, and the person's job is to get the finest drop of water they can. So they're giving a water source, they're given a pipe to put the water source into, and they have a filter in the middle of the pipe. And if you're not familiar with what a filter is, you've probably used them on your sink for water, like Brita filters, but in this case, let's just say the filter is a chain link fence. We throw it in the middle of the pipe, that way when we're piping water through, it catches large sediment, and we can get water that's potentially drinkable without being contaminated. And what we have here is the water being men just simply using their testosterone, going after it. They're just the current. They are the current, just trying to pass on their genes on a consistent basis. And then women, you are there to literally filter out the men who should move on, right? Basically select the best genetic quality, because if you didn't, we'd all look terrible and be really messed up looking individuals, and the human race probably wouldn't carry on. So you can kind of act like a filter, okay? I mean, men have preferences as well, but our preferences are a little more varied. For women, you have to select definitely the best possible man you can, because you're both carrying on a genetic lineage. So that is how we're going to get our drop of water. And so far, the filter has worked for a long time. I mean, we obviously made it to this point in 2022. Now, the problem comes into play when you start adding more and more links in this chain link fence that acts as a filter, which is essentially what social media and dating apps allows you to do. It allows you to filter out and hyper select for men that can be better and better. But what happens, you keep adding and adding links. Well, eventually you get to a point where you only get a tiny drop of water. And this tiny drop of water is not enough to sustain anybody, to sustain anything. Which, you know, if you're familiar with it, that's why there's declining birth rates and all these things. It's in large part an intermingling of 3 things: dating apps, social media, and car-dependent infrastructure. Now, why do I include car-dependent infrastructure in that? The common topics and conversation is always centered around dating apps and social media. Well, I add car-dependent infrastructure in there because basically with car-dependent infrastructure, it's necessitated the use of dating apps and social media, because you're not seeing enough people. Also, you need a way to socially validate yourself when you actually do meet someone you want to talk to again, whether it be friends or a potential partner. You need a way of socially validating yourself. That's social media. That's what it's there for. You know, on top of that, making money and thirst trapping and all these different things. But yeah, a little digression. So dating apps comes into play because you don't meet enough people in your day-to-day life until you hit a weekend that Or, if you get together with your friends on a weekday, or if you have a big enough social circle. But again, if you decide to move for whatever reason, your social circle disappears. So you really need social media at that point, because you have to just tell people, hey, I'm friendly, I'm fun to be around when you do meet them. And how can they glean that off of the very first interaction they have with you? Well, hey, add me on Instagram. Okay, look, hey, this person's pretty cool. Wow, yeah, we should definitely link up now. I know you're good. So dating apps, right? It's very hard to meet people until the weekend comes around, and that's if you even go out, and hopefully you didn't move cities or do something like that, because now you're really gonna have a hard time meeting people. But if your city was walkable, so far you've been seeing me for the past 10 minutes, and I've literally passed not a single person. I passed a lot of buildings, I've passed a lot of houses, and the only thing that's passed me is cars. Cars. But if a city, again, was walkable, it wouldn't be cars passing me. It would be the people in those cars passing me. Now at night, you're probably not going to talk to someone out of the blue because it might be a little odd. However, if there's a large amount of people and a kind of a crowd going, just trying to get to where they need to go, you may. Maybe someone stops, and because the city's walkable, someone's built a cafe or a supermarket nearby. Or in supermarkets, in this case, it'd probably be like a little grocery store, a very small one. And you stop in to grab a coffee because, hey, someone decided a coffee shop would be nice to have at night, because a lot of people walk by this area at night because they're trying to get to where they want to go. But instead, we have cars, pavement, parking lots, and houses. A lot of houses. So now, going back to this whole filter analogy with dating apps and everything, essentially what happens is you put in so many filters. And again, women, you are the filter. So if you look at the statistics on dating apps, only like very, very few men even have that much success on dating apps. And that's because what happens is it adds so many links in the chain. You can be hyper selective, especially without judgment. And you can be hyper selective in a way that you probably would not have been if dating apps didn't exist. Or if you was in a local bar, you're looking at all the men around you, and they can't all meet your criteria. So now you start cutting away some of the links, not necessarily because you have to, but because that's just what's in front of you. That's just the natural thing you're going to do. You're going to scan your environment. We as people, we scan our environments, and we just look at everyone around us, and we kind of make judgments off of them. And so, yeah, it's a whole different ball game when you're actually sitting there looking people face to face. And now what happens is, if you take things to a local level, it starts to remove some of those links. And the problem is, the single drop of water isn't just bad for men. I'm not just saying, hey, women are getting all the benefits here. It's bad for your women too, because at the end of the day, we as people are going to want to reproduce. Men, women, you're going to want to reproduce. And as guys, you just got to accept the fact that across the entire animal kingdom, most men do not reproduce. So that's just something you have to accept. We all have to accept, right, as guys. But as women, it does help too when you can look at things at a local level, because you're going to have a better attachment when you can actually meet people on a day-to-day basis. One, you're going to get better at reading people because you're going to see them a lot more as opposed to just snapshots of their lives. Two, you're going to actually be able to form a connection over a long while. Let's say you meet somebody on a train and you're into Harry Potter, and this guy actually happens to be reading Harry Potter, and so that's going to pique your interest. Maybe you say something to him, maybe you decide to bring a Harry Potter book next time to see if he says anything to you, but you get to experiment a lot more on a social level, because the last place that most people are going to be in where they get to experiment is high school. Because from there, people go into the work, they go to the military, they go to college. In the military and college, you get a chance to experiment as well, but soon those things end. I mean, the majority of people get out of the military, and the majority of people don't go into a master's degree, and even if you do go into a master's or doctorate, you're probably so busy studying, you're not really paying attention to people anyways, except those who you're very close to. So, basically, what I'm saying here is walkable cities take away some of those links in the fence and get everyone's towards a common goal. which is reproduction. We want water and good quality water, but we don't want water that's so pure, but only one drop of it, because it doesn't help anybody. You can't, allow a village to drink from one single drop of water. It takes an entire bucket upon buckets upon buckets upon buckets full of water to keep a village satiated. And that's kind of also, and this is probably another tangent that I get into in another video, but that's pretty much where society is at as well, is with declining birth rates, everything else. It's like the filters become so fine and so ingrained that we're getting to a point where we may only be able to get one single drop of water, which in itself isn't bad. But what's bad is that we've structured society in a way to where we need continuous population growth to support it. That's the bad part. So again, it's not the fact that everyone needs to reproduce and start the chart away. Declining birth rates aren't bad on their own. They're bad when you include how we've structured society to where we actually need people to come in to replace those we've lost, and also keep people coming in to help bolster those reaching their old age, reaching retirement age. And this, in another video, not related to dating or anything, would be talking about how developed countries use immigration to help pretty much the declining birth rates and keep people coming in and paying into the tax system for all these other different things. So that's about it on that. That's kind of how dating apps and the car-dependent infrastructure intermingles and why those two are highly interconnected. But if you haven't done so, watch the other videos if you feel inclined, and I'll talk to you later.